I'm Alia Faraj Johnson. Although fundraising numbers are not officially in, Governor Charlie Crist hauls in a whopping $4.3 million, setting a new fundraising record. Will this affect Marco Rubio's plans for the U.S. Senate? And how did other candidates seeking statewide office do? All that and more on this edition of Power Play, with our guests Aaron DeLotte with the Orlando Sentinel, Joe Follick with the New York Times Florida Papers. Aaron, let's get started. We're talking about an enormous amount of money that Governor Crist has raised for the U.S. Senate race.
And clearly all the talk about the dour predictions of poor fundraising in this economic climate were a bit premature. Crist has shattered all the records for fundraising. He had set them as a governor in the governor's race, and now he's set them again as a U.S. Senate candidate.
Well, Joe, what does that mean for Marco Rubio?
Well, it's nothing good, right? I mean, the 4.3 that the governor raised is startling in its own right. It becomes more so when compared to the 300,000 or whatever that Rubio has raised. It's also raising a lot of serious questions. I think the next couple of weeks, Rubio is going to have to make a decision.
Well, let's talk about Marco Rubio a little bit. I mean, he's sort of approaching this from a grassroots campaign, you know, trying to reach out to people on the internet. I mean, it apparently seems to be working because that's a lot of money if you're just trying to reach out to supporters on the internet.
It's a lot of money if you're trying to, I don't know, sell a gadget on the internet. It's not a lot of money if you're going to run for U.S. Senate, though. And I think that if his goal was to raise his name ID in a campaign, there are other ways to do that besides getting beat pretty badly in a Senate primary next year.
Aaron, what do you think?
I think, frankly, the Crist folks are a little disappointed in Rubio. They expected him to raise somewhere around $1 million, and now there aren't very many people they can go and shake down. I mean, there are a few hundred people that have given to Rubio's campaign. It's not many people to turn around and say, all right, now get with the winner.
Well, moving on, let's talk about Kendrick Meek. I mean, obviously, he's also vying for the seat. He was able to raise a substantial amount of money.
Yeah, it's $1.2 million. He's got almost $3 million now so far this year. It's a little inappropriate or inaccurate to kind of compare his numbers directly to the governor because of just different time schedules and different work schedules. But he's clearly going to have $12 to $15 million to spend, which he'll be a formidable candidate.
Does this look like a Crist-Meek matchup, or does Marco Rubio stay in the race? Thoughts?
Well, I think if Rubio stays in the race, it's going to be with the idea that he's carrying the conservative banner and laying the groundwork for the future. I think if that wasn't at least in the back of his mind before, it should be now. Yes, Crist-Meek is kind of what we expected, and this week just fortified that idea.
Well, moving along, let's talk about the governor's race. Although the numbers still aren't in, let's just speculate. CFO Sink raising money, Attorney General Bill McCollum raising money for the gubernatorial race.
And they're both pretty seasoned fundraisers. I think we'll see them come in, you know, hovering around the $1 million mark. Both of them declared in the middle of the campaign fundraising quarter, but Sink has been raising money for her CFO reelect, so she already has a slight fundraising advantage. I think next quarter will be the more accurate gauge because they'll both have a full 3 months to raise money.
Joe?
Well, I agree with the dollar figures there. I wonder if Charlie has maybe sucked up some of the fundraising efforts for McCollum in this first quarter, but McCollum has a lot of Charlie's governor's campaign fundraising guys on there, so I think the McCollum's numbers are actually going to be a little bit better than we might expect this quarter.
Aaron, let's move on. Let's talk about the race for AG. I mean, we have Senator Gelber, who basically sent out an email and a Facebook message saying he'd raised $150,000, and then you have Senator Ehrenberg. We still haven't heard his numbers.
Well, I think it's too early to tell if this is a true gauge of viability for these two. They've raised more money than this for their state Senate campaigns, so they both have South Florida constituencies that they're able to hit up early. It's just a matter of time. We'll have to wait and see who their GOP opponent is, too.
Money kind of secondary in this race right now. I think Gelber 150, Ehrenberg likely to come in around 170. We'll call that a wash. I think these guys have been more focused on getting support, getting endorsements, getting backers right now rather than money because they were both trying to squeeze the other guy out of the race a little bit perhaps. So I think that's where the fight's been. The money, not so important this quarter in that race.
With that, gentlemen, let's move on to the power play of the week. Aaron, your power play of the week?
Well, Governor Charlie Crist has really blocked out the sun this week with his $4.3 million reported. There's probably no more dreaded phone call in the state of Florida than the governor calling to ask for a check because apparently nobody can say no.
Joe, your power play.
I'm going to go with the former speaker who had some good fundraising numbers this week, and it's John Thrasher. The guy's in the race for 5 weeks for a state Senate race, 1/40th of the state, and raises about $250,000. Marco Rubio must look at that and say, maybe I need to get some tips from this guy.
With that, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us, and thank you, our viewers, for joining us on another episode of Power Play. For the latest on all your political news, please visit safetyreview.com.